Hey guys, how is it going? It's the Fuzz. So I've been putting together this little list, and what this is basically all the data from the 8 master tournaments we have had thus far. That's right, it's been 8. So I have basically 2 parts for you. The first part is this table here. The colors represent the score groups from each of the 8 tournaments. At the very top is blue. That's the winner. The dark gray is the runner-up, the person who lost to the winner in the last round. The lighter green are the 3 out of 4s. The oranges are the 2 out of 4s. The yellows are the 1 out of 4s. And the reds are the 0s. Now, what you'll notice that these tables are not all even. That's because not every tournament had 16 players. In fact, after the first 2, we stopped having 16 players. Usually because somebody couldn't make it or something came up, and there were just buys. Now, as long as there's no more than 1 buy, there will always be 1 clear 4-pointer. If there's more than that, if there's exactly 3 or more people missing, you can actually have a winner without 4 points, and that happened in one of the master tournaments. After that, I got a list of all the players with all the scores. You can actually already see the top part here. So, kind of give you a highlight of what's been happening. The very first tournament was probably the most prestigious because it was the first time we did it. It had the biggest prize pool, and we always had wild cards for the first few. In this one, it was Zizo, Scotty Mac, and AKA Wonder as the 3 wild cards who didn't have to play ranked or do anything to get their golden tickets. In general, the wildcards tended to not do very well, but, they're up against, the best of Spellweaver. What do you expect? So that first tournament was won by Peacekeeper, who beat Johnny V in the final round. And, of course, Peacekeeper took home the biggest prize ever offered, which is something like $860. By far the biggest Masters prize ever, because the prize pool was lower each time, a little bit lower each time until the 5th one, or the 6th one, where the prize structure was completely reworked. So the second one, we also had 16 players. In fact, it was the last tournament to have exactly 16. We had ECOP, Doom, and I'm not sure how you pronounce that guy, competing with Laurentiel taking first place, PewQ in second, with 3 points, losing to Laurentiel in the last round. And then Uska, Jodo, and Little Fur with 3 points. And a pretty strong lineup overall in 2 points. Then we move to the third one. Now, you see, this is the first time we actually had a bye. I don't remember who was supposed to play in it. It was one of the wild cards, I believe. And we only had Stan Tivka and Crap Time, I believe, was the other one. I think. Those were the wild cards. The third one didn't make it. So this one was also won by Peacekeeper. So that marked already a repeat champion, which is something I thought was going to happen a lot. But actually, as you look at the table, it did not happen again. Although a lot of players tried. Anyways, Jodo taking second place with Laurentiel, Cloud OT Stars, and Kruer taking 3 points. Or maybe Cloud was the wild card. I just can't remember. Anyways, starting the 4th Masters, there was a change. The biggest change was that Peacekeeper did not participate. In fact, it was the last tournament Peacekeeper participated in. See, at that point, after Peacekeeper had his second win, I started to think that we were just going to have a group of 3 or 4 players just taking all the titles. But that wasn't the case. This opened the way for Jodo to take first place, beating Powell 1-2-3 in it was a truly astonishing battle, because Powell could have won the title, but he ran out of time when he was about to declare the lethal attack. That attack that would have won, he ran out of time. Oh my goodness. That was quite something. It was a pretty unforgettable experience. After that, we move on to the 5th tournament, and there were some things different this time too. Now, only 14 players. We had 2 zeros. That's because PewQ dropped from the tournament, so he didn't finish out. He probably would have like 1 or 2 points, but he chose to drop. Also, Johto did not participate either, so this marked his departure, and with him and Peacekeeper gone, that's 2 out of the 3 champions from the previous tournament not playing anymore. So this allowed Powell, who came in second previously, to claim his rightful throne, with Uska Fanafa coming in right behind him, and Sensagius and Laurential taking 3 points. Then the 6th tournament marks yet another change. It was the first tournament I cast solo. We redid the prizes a little bit with less emphasis on the money. There was like just only the 1 prize, and then we also stopped having wild cards here. Oh yeah, the wild card in this one was, I believe, Alish and I can't remember. Oh, because Severus was another wild card because he was supposed to play in a previous tournament, but something went wrong where he couldn't actually register for the tournament, so he was given a free spot in the next tournament. So he was one of the wild cards, and then Alish, and then the third one didn't make it. And then in this one, PewQ taking first for the first time, with Toric, a relative unknown up until this point, suddenly just being the runner-up, which was pretty astonishing. And actually quite a few new names, such as Ulf and Yenny Shui, with pretty good scores. This is in part because without the wild cards, there's more actual, like regular players applying to these things, and more golden tickets handed out. And again, because some of the previous champions weren't playing, this opened the way for more people to try to get a shot at it. And indeed, that's exactly the pattern we saw. As a matter of fact, every single Masters tournament had somebody who's never played a Masters before. I don't know how long this pattern will continue. I imagine eventually it will stop, but we'll see just how long it takes until we no longer have a new edition. But anyways, the 7th tournament was pretty unique because, as you can see, it featured only 13 players. Only 13 players, which is by far the lowest. And because of this, the top 5 players, Sensagius, PewQ, Drygord, Yablan, and Crystal Slime, all had 3 points. Nobody had 4. But because Sensagius had played collectively the best players of all of them, no, he played and beat PewQ, he had the best tiebreak. So him getting the title was, in my opinion, completely deserved, because when I looked at it afterwards, adding up the scores, he definitely faced the toughest players of the bunch. So it was completely fair. And this marked the first time Laurential, actually not the first time, previously Laurential, who had up until then been a really consistent player, after a 1-point performance in the 6th Masters, came in at a 0 performance at the 7th Masters and just straight up dropped, which is why there is 2 zeros. So, a bit of a meltdown for him. But thankfully, in the next and the most recent tournament, Laurential made it up and made it to 3 points. This one was won by Drygord, another, not going to say an unknown, but not a player you'd think of when you think, top player of all time. But again, because time goes by and these new players, they become the good players. Drygord was one such player who had kind of gone from somewhat of an unknown to a reputable and respectable good player, and clearly good enough to take first place in a vicious battle against Cruel Tech. Luck was definitely now on Cruel Tech's side in that battle, which definitely had an impact, but such is the case. Also, appearance by Amami and Diokan, who have not been in any tournaments before that, but scored 3 points each. How remarkable is that? So I expect this is the pattern we're going to see more and more people getting into these tournaments, and more unknowns doing pretty well. I mean, getting a golden ticket and getting 3 out of 4, that's pretty good. And this also marked the second 0-point performance by PewQ. PewQ is unique of all the players because he is the only player in Spellweaver to have played in all 8 tournaments. He's been in all of them. Oh, sorry, except, no, all of them. All 8 of them. And this is the second time where he had a 0. He lost the first round and then just dropped. He probably could have played on, but I don't think that he cares very much about like prestige or anything, because at that point there's only one prize. You either win all your games and you take the prize, or you don't. So you lose round 1, you're most likely not going to get the prize. Why bother? I'm sure he could have probably gotten under 3 points or so, but he chose not to. So moving forward, I'm going to be marking down these results. I'm not going to have a video like this probably for another few months, so we can get more of these tables down here. Extend it a little bit, see how far we get, see how many of these we can have. Maybe it'll just go on forever. But anyways, the second part I have is the actual scores. So this is the list of every single player who has ever participated in Masters. And the colors, again, represent their scores. Now, what you'll notice is that the vast majority of players have, like, 3 points or less. In fact, better than half the players that have ever played in Masters have 3 or less. So you look at the bottom, you have players like N-Silver, Ash the Cat, and AKA Wonder. These are people that have just played 1 Masters and didn't do well. And that's that. That's really the end of that. The 1-pointers are basically, it's the same thing. They played 1 Masters but actually got a win. A lot of wildcards ended up here. Wildcards tended to get maybe 1 or 0 points because they just were a lot less experienced than the pros. So it'd be pretty amazing for one of them to actually get quite far. Alish being the exception with 2 points. And speaking of 2 points, generally these are mostly players that have played in 1 Masters and have gotten 2 points. Pretty expected. But again, you see just how many players of the is it 84? Oh, not quite. Minus like 63 players or so if you just add them up. Better like almost 2/3 have 3 or less. It's remarkable. Anyways, the 3-pointers. Now we start moving on to the good stuff. You have a lot of those guys like Amami and Diokan who have played in exactly 1, but some of those guys actually did have 2 performances and got a 1 and a 2 in them. Now, when you get to that, start getting up top at the 4-pointers, none of these people have 1, which means all of them played in exactly 2 Masters and either did a 3-1 or a 2-2. At 5 points, it's usually like a 3-2. These are the people that have done better. Generally, anyone that has more than like 8 is someone who has played in multiple Masters or that have gotten really high scores across. Because you can get 4 points in a Masters. If you win a Masters, that's 4. Then you do 3, that's already 7. That puts you ahead of almost everyone. In fact, a good example here is Powell with 7 points. Played in only 2 Masters, but I got a 3 and a 4. And that puts him ahead of like 80% of all the players. Sensages is an interesting one because he has a 6 with 2 3s, exactly one of those being the title, which I think is pretty remarkable. Krur sits at an 8. And it's an interesting thing because Krur went from, he had a 0 in the first, then he went to a 3 in the second, then another 3, and then a 2, and then he hasn't played at all. So kind of a roller coaster ride for Krur. Spheaks with 9, again, played probably like several. I didn't actually count how many everybody played. But this is the section we were looking at. The black section. The guys that have scored 10 or more. Of those, Peacekeeper is the 2-time champion. And the person, I thought was just going to have the most points by far if he had kept playing. It's quite likely that would be the case. But he stopped after 3. That's still 10 points in 3 tournaments. It's pretty impressive. Uska Fanafan with 11, never a winner of a Masters, but frequently, almost always in 3 points, so just solid and consistent across the board. Jodo, almost the same story as Peacekeeper, played 1 more tournament and had slightly lower results, but combined ended up with a higher score, so that puts him at 4th. Laurentiel is perhaps, it's the second most games played player with 15. Would have probably done better, but his tournaments 6 and 7 were really, really unfortunate. He just kind of hit a bad spot. But he seems to have made a pretty good recovery. Pewq, the guy who's been in front for a really, really long time, but on account of his last performance, actually dropped to 2nd place, allowing Cruel Tech, the guy who has not actually won a title has the most points because he's played in almost all of them, but he's done consistently really well, whereas Pew had, 2 really bad results, but then, just pretty good across the board. So that's it. Those are the best of the Masters tournament. These guys right here, it really takes a lot to get there because you have to make your way past a lot of opponents. And keep in mind, this is a card game, so you do have to kind of avoid bad luck, and sometimes you can. But it does take persistence and consistency, and these guys have shown it. And I am definitely interested to see if Cruel Tag manages to hold this title. Is Cruel Tag finally going to win a Masters? I feel like it's just going to happen inevitably because he's the guy who has played the most games of Spellweaver. He's the highest level player in the game, frequently rank 1. So it seems inevitable that he's gonna get there, right? He just needs just a little bit more luck, and he'll be at the top. He is also the person I've been calling out for the last 3 tournaments that he's gonna win this one. He's gonna win this one, but then he just keeps missing it by a little bit. In fact, in the 7th Masters, he did not play at all. That's actually the only time he didn't play, I believe. So yeah, that sums it up for this little Masters report. I hope you enjoyed. I'll do this again, maybe 4 or 5 Masters down, maybe a little bit more, because after 4 Masters, maybe not enough will have changed that it's not really worth talking about. But it is an interesting journey we've been on. The tournaments has changed, the players have changed, but the battlefield remains pretty competitive. These guys have battled through various metas, from Wisdom Dominion controls to Path of Transcendence shenanigans to chicken shenanigans. A lot of things have happened. I'm looking forward to the next one. I wonder if the next one will have the mini expansion cards in them. I would say probably not, but if not, then the March tournament almost certainly will. Looking forward to that, and I'll see you guys next time.